Welcome everybody to week number 4. This week we want to focus on the importance of having muscle mass and how weight training can help us achieve those goals. Now, before we jump into it, I want to preface something. When it comes to weight training, exercise, building muscle mass, everybody's going to be on a different point, right? Especially for this program. For some of the individuals who are going to be watching this and going through our program, adding weight training in right now is just simply too soon. And for other people, it might be one of the biggest things we can add in that's going to make a significant difference at this point of the program. So for each one of you, it's going to be a little bit different, and we are going to decide one-on-one on our phone call if starting weight training right now is right for you. But one way or the other, I want you to pay attention to how important muscle mass is, training, even if it's just for the future. I just want you to kind of understand the importance of it. Now, with muscle mass, we're going to jump into a couple of things. And I'm going to kind of go quick on this. I don't want to harp too much onto it. But in today's world, we all know that there is a huge issue with obesity, right? This obesity epidemic, a lot of people with overweight issues, health issues that are associated with those, chronic diseases, things like that. But one thing that's not talked about enough is it's not just too much body fat that's contributing to this. Almost more so, it's a lack of muscle mass. Because if someone has a lot of body fat, but they also have a lot of muscle mass, that can actually help combat a lot of those chronic issues, different diseases that can happen. And so it's really important to have a higher muscle mass. And if you don't have a higher muscle mass, there's actually a name for this. It's called sarcopenia. It is one of the biggest issues that is undiagnosed in the world. There's a lot of studies that are going out about it, and we're starting to realize that this is, like I mentioned earlier, almost a bigger issue than the obesity. And essentially what sarcopenia means is a loss of muscle mass throughout time as you age. And the only way to combat it is by, doing something active that either maintains or builds muscle mass. Now, to jump into sarcopenia a little bit, essentially what this means is around the age of 30 is when it can usually start happening. Every decade after you hit the age of 30, you will lose between 3 and 8% of your total muscle mass every decade. And once you hit the age of 60, that will increase to almost 15% of your total muscle mass lost every decade. So as you can see, if you're not combating the loss of muscle mass that comes along with the sarcopenia, if you're not doing something to fight it, every decade that goes by, you're losing such a large percentage of muscle mass. You're losing functionality, quality of life, you're increasing risk of these different diseases. Now, this all seems kind of scary, but the nice thing is it doesn't take a whole lot to fight it. You don't have to be going to the gym and training, all these heavy weights 5 days a week. You just have to be doing something active to at least stop the loss of the muscle mass. Now, to really quickly explain or give a little bit of an example on this, we're going to look at this MRI. So it's going to pop up on the screen. This is a very close image of a quadricep muscle. There's 2 different individuals. The one on the top is a 70-year-old triathlete, someone who's been active, working out, doing things throughout their whole life. And the bottom picture is a 72-year-old male who had a mostly sedentary life, a job that was mostly at a computer, not a lot of hobbies that included, walking, outdoor, things like that. Now, if you look at each of these pictures, there's a couple of different things to point out. The darker tissue is the muscle mass, with the lighter, almost whitish tissue being the adipose or body fat. And then you can also see the femur bone, that really hard white, area right in the middle. Now, to kind of look at the 2 different differences, not only is there a huge amount of muscle mass for the athlete, right? You can see that there's very, very little adipose tissue. That muscle mass is basically filling up the entire leg. But if you look at the 72-year-old who is mostly sedentary, not only is the majority of that leg adipose tissue or body fat, but you can see that it's actually infiltrated into the muscle. The muscle itself looks completely different, right? You can see that marbling deep into it, basically rendering that muscle mostly unusable. And this is the kind of situation when it gets this bad where someone might be put into a nursing home just because they don't have the muscle mass or the ability to function and take care of themselves. Now, another thing that's really interesting with this, if you look at the femur bone itself, you can actually see a physical difference in the density, size, and strength of the triathlete's femur bone compared to the femur bone of the person with the sedentary lifestyle. And you probably have heard of, osteoporosis, weakening of the bones, and it is increased if you don't have that muscle mass. Because if you're not living an active lifestyle, those muscles will just slowly kind of break, or the bones will slowly kind of break down, and you can see it in these pictures. Now, when it comes to building muscle mass and maintaining functionality, like I've mentioned multiple times, we do not have to be weight training. That's kind of the gold standard. If you're feeling up to it, you have the time and you enjoy doing that, then awesome. But it doesn't have to be for everybody. I actually worked with a individual a few years ago. She was awesome. She was in her mid 70s. And the reason that she started coming to the gym wasn't because she wanted to build this insane physique or put on all this muscle mass. She actually had a really scary situation happen to her where she was alone at home and she ended up falling. She wasn't injured. Luckily, she didn't hurt anything, but she was so weak, she physically could not get up from the ground. She just was stuck. And I can't remember if it was right at 24 or a little bit over 24 hours, but it took a long time before her son came and checked on her and was able to find her and help her get to her feet. But that really scared her, right? Because even though she wasn't injured, she was just stuck on the ground. And if her son hadn't come, who knows how long she would have been stuck there. And so she started coming to the gym with the sole goal and purpose of being able to build up enough strength to where she was comfortable being alone again, because she started living with her son because he was just too scared. And so for us, our main goal was literally just to get to where she could go from a standing position all the way to a prone position and then back to standing on her own without any help. And it took a couple of months of, different exercises and different routines and things that we were doing before she could do that 100% on her own. And then she was able to move back in on her own and feel comfortable, having the strength to walk up the stairs into her house, knowing that even if she needed to go down the ground or if she did have another fall, that she wasn't just going to be stuck there. And for her, that was just such a freeing feeling. And so for me and you, as we're going to talk about your goals and where you need to go with muscle mass, don't get too intimidated, because, sometimes it can be intimidating if you feel like you don't have a lot of muscle mass. We're not worried about building this huge physique or becoming a professional bodybuilder. We just want to get to where you're functional, you have a high quality of life, and your muscle mass isn't so low that it's going to increase risk for these other diseases. Now, that's mostly what we're going to jump into today. I don't want to harp too much into it. As far as the actual weight training, if you're at a position where we're ready to start throwing in weight training, and we're going to talk about that on the phone, then this is the week where we're going to start adding in about 2 sessions of weight training each week. If you're at a position where that's going to be a little bit too soon, we might just increase either the time you're walking or maybe throw in, some treadmill or some exercise bike. We're going to do something to increase the activity, but just know we're going to figure something out that's going to be good for you. As of right now, though, just remember the importance of muscle mass. We have to be doing something. If you're not continually fighting sarcopenia and you're not doing something to combat it, you will lose muscle mass and you will lose functionality. But that's going to be it for the video. Hope you guys have a great day, and we'll talk soon.